When I first got an invite to the Deadlock closed test, I was a little impartial to it. I knew it was Valve's next big thing, and therefore it had a serious namesake behind it, but I hadn't really heard much about it other than the fact that it was another take on the MOBA genre with a third-person shooter twist to it. And I just kind of went, meh, I'll check it out when I'm bored and have nothing else to do. And truth be told, the only reason it was even a consideration for me is because of the third-person shooter element. Without that, I don't think this game would have even registered on my radar in the first place. You see, folks, I had never played a MOBA game before this point. I know, throw all the judgment my way, but there was something about them that never really spoke to me and caught my attention like how FPS games do. And I struggle to find the words as to why that's the case. You know, maybe it's the perceived pace of MOBA games, or maybe it's just how the gameplay style didn't resonate with me, or it could just be the fact that I'm a next level simpleton who likes to just jump in and start pew-pewing a whole lobby with the gameplay style. Something that I, well, quickly learned you could not do in a game like Deadlock. It also didn't help that I have multiple buddies who I know who have destroyed multiple mice, keyboards, and headsets while playing the likes of League, Dota, and Smite. And, you know, I just looked at that and went, nah, FPS games can be bad enough for my blood pressure as it is. I would rather not shave more years off of my life. Either way, despite all of that, I hit that catalyst point, if you will, this past week. I got over my self-inflicted hesitancy, and I decided to boot up Deadlock for the first time. And with that unjust confidence, I jumped into my first game with real players. Players who were clearly well-versed in this voodoo-ass MOBA version of the English language that was evidently very alien to me still. And well, what you would expect happened. I got my ass handed to me on a silver platter, multiple times. I felt like I was being served as the menu during the final supper. But you know what the crazy thing was? It didn't deter me like I thought it would. In fact, it got me hooked. It got me hooked and wanting more, like the goddamn masochist that I am. Now, it took me a minute or two to work out why that was the case. Historically speaking, this is a game that shouldn't appeal to me in the bloody slightest, and getting my ass handed to me isn't exactly anyone's idea of a good time, so why did it have such an impact on me? But after some thinking and some more time with the game, I found that the very thing that was keeping me around was that very word in the first place, the sense of impact in those moments of success. Sure, I got knocked down a few pegs far more often than I'd like to admit. But as it felt like I started to understand the game a bit more, my impact, or the impact that my success carried on those moments in the game, was far stronger than what you would expect in some FPS game that I frequent at the moment. You know, in most first-person shooter games I play, I kill someone, they're back pretty quickly. Not the case in Deadlock. And you know, if I gained the upper hand on my lane at the start of a match, or if I needed to flex and I got a very successful kill on an ally's lane that was struggling, it felt like it had a monumental flow-on effect on the game in that particular moment. And on the flip side to that, observing those moments occur from a third party, being either, you know, watching my teammates or my enemies do it, was also impressive as hell to watch. And because of that, folks, I caught myself respecting the skill curve in this game so quickly. And not just the individual skill curve, but also the team-based skill curve more broadly that can be on display here. You know, managing your lanes, flexing to a teammate's lane as required, ganking an opponent that's weak and is in an exposed position, communicating all of that in a clear and effective way to your team. And you could really tell when a player or a team more broadly were of a higher caliber in your match just due to the way they played and the way they had an impact on the outcome of your game as well. You know, watching someone score insane multi-kills, chaining abilities, working with synergies, or simply just controlling lanes on their own, it was kind of awe-inspiring, knowing how difficult it can actually be to get kills in this game if, you know, you're in a very tight one-on-one environment. And wanting to chase that impact yourself, or be the one to exert that impact on a match, really tickled a competitive itch that I've not had in a game for a very long time now. For those who don't know me, I am an absolute sucker for a healthy skill curve in my games. Something that gives new players an opportunity to get into the game and learn the ropes, while also offering up the highly skilled player base the mechanics and the means to exploit their skills towards victory. Deadlock absolutely nails that, which, as far as I'm aware, is one of the most important elements to a healthy MOBA game. And I think it mainly achieves this throughout the design of its character roster. So within Deadlock's roster of characters, some of them are immediately identified as characters that are good for newer players to learn the ropes of the game with. You know, characters whose primary weapons and abilities are a bit more, let's say, grounded. But that doesn't also mean they're immediately power creeped out of the game by the rest of the roster as the heroes start to achieve their endgame builds and upgrades. No. Some of these starter characters, if you will, are some of the most powerful in the roster right now under the right hands. And if you build them right, you are able to do some pretty wacky things that see your team leading. You are able to do some pretty wacky things that see you carrying your team to victory. And that is something I absolutely adore about the game here at the moment. The fact that there is so much flexibility in the characters, the abilities they carry, and the builds they can build, while also encouraging a healthy skill curve between each one of them in their own flavor of the sense, is very impressive to me, and something I've not seen a lot of games as of late handle to such a successful extent as Deadlock. Now, on the note of the builds in this game as well, there is just simply so much depth on offer here, so many upgrades that are available to you, so much so to the point where it can feel incredibly overwhelming as a new player. However, there is an in-game feature that lets the community share their builds for auto-reference directly in the game client, and then build owners can even put instructions on what order people should be buying upgrades as some extra guidance. This is just another way that Deadlock affords new players the accessibility to get into the game, with options that allow highly skilled players the means to really propel themselves forward to the next level. I love this. It shows some incredible presence of mind to ensure that all parties of the community can get something out of the game in question. As someone who's brand new to the MOBA space, it's so bloody appreciated, but it also demonstrates that a healthy skill curve is present here as well with the kind of builds that people are coming up with. You know, folks, as someone who's been really entrenched in the broader first-person shooter space, and has very much felt like I'm someone who's cornered myself into a genre that has just been disappointing us constantly lately, Deadlock has served as an excellent reminder that sometimes the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And while actively looking for greener pastures 24/7 is only going to, leave you disappointed and with unrealistic expectations, it can give you a fresh perspective on things when you go looking for it in moderation. And Deadlock, from a first-person shooter player's perspective, has just been that for me. It satisfies that shooter itch for me just by the nature of its gameplay, but it also gives me a huge amount of appreciation for the MOBA genre more broadly, and the things that you need to consider in those kinds of games. It's a different skill set that is, by the same token, somewhat transferable between the genres that I'm, mainly focusing on right now. The skills of needing to switch lanes and supporting a failing defense or gank an incredibly troublesome enemy, or, when you should exhibit restraint in your gameplay, when you should push a little bit harder, all of these skills to that extent translate to FPS games as well in some way, shape, or form. But in the context of a MOBA game like Deadlock, there's a level of depth that I haven't really found myself getting this excited about in a while. I want to learn the characters, the abilities, the synergies, the counters, the builds, the works. The drive is there, and it means that I just want to keep logging in and trying new things constantly. Very few FPS games as of late have made me feel the same way, the same degree of drive to go exploring like this. And that, I think, says a lot about Deadlock. And to those of you out there, who I know majority of you are primarily first-person shooter gamers, I would recommend seeking out a code for this thing as best you can. Because honestly, I think a lot of you out there in my audience right now are going to have a lot of fun with this. And if you're new to my channel and you happen to be a MOBA player primarily who's looking for access, I think you guys are going to enjoy this one too. Not that I've really got a foundation or a comparison point to draw on here, but I will say that the game does feel tightly made, it feels well polished, it feels, just generally responsive, which shouldn't be thrown aside either. The game technically feels very strong, which is why I think a lot of MOBA players are going to enjoy themselves here as well. But folks, with all of that said, that is going to be everything from me today in this video. If you guys enjoyed the conversation, be sure to backhand the like button and let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more Deadlock content from me. I'm not sure how deep into the guides I'll get with this thing, but very keen to hear your thoughts and maybe even do a couple more gameplay videos in the future. Get subscribed if you're new to the channel. We're doing a lot of first-person shooter content and maybe some Deadlock content too, but we're also going to be expanding out with a few new things I'm going to be trialing in the near future too, so stay tuned for that. And as always, if you want to come hang out with myself in the community, check out my Twitch and Discord links down below in the description. Be keen to see you guys there as well. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.